Will you get a tariff refund? Are 401ks a scam? And is the stock market only going up because the government is printing money? Let's find out. Welcome back to the Personal Finance Club show. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Jeremy. How's it going?
Very good. I heard you have a question for me.
I have a question for you. I was thinking about what you would think about this, specifically you. What do you think about the mental math that goes into when you find money on your Venmo or in your coat pocket, and in your mind it's like free money, whether it's like $100, it could be $3. What do you think about, even if you know, Venmo will tell you where you got it from, oh, somebody paid me for a meal last month or whatever. What are your thoughts on that mental math of it's free money? This is $100 I can just spend now.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel it even in my own life. I'm very much on the budgeting spreadsheet side of nerdiness, but I don't put Venmo in my net worth statement. And there was a time in my life where I had cash and wallet as a category in my budget where I would keep track of every dollar, and then that's kind of died. And these days cash is getting so rarely used. How often do you use cash these days, do you think?
My downfall is I'm in an apartment with laundry downstairs, so I have to go get quarters.
Oh,
so
it only takes quarters. It doesn't take
there's no
cards
card. It's a small building, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'll end up if I'm at the bank, I'll just end up getting $40 or $60 just to be oh, next time I need quarters. I'll get a couple rolls and I'll be next time I'll just have a couple dollars in my pocket in case I go to the grocery store and I can ask them for quarters or whatever it may be.
Is there a quarter machine in your laundromat, or are you just trying to get change in the real world?
No, they really did us dirty. I do love my apartment in this building, but that's the one downfall.
Yeah, no, having laundry in your unit is the most massive luxury in life.
You can't have it all.
I know. Us people in the Midwest are you don't have laundry in your unit. I was hey, in California, things are rough out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say cash and, the Venmo money, I think all that stuff really does kind of feel like free money, because it's okay, well, it's not on your credit card statement. It's not coming out of your checking account. It kind of feels like this other column of free money. And, I think that's okay. It's, I think for most people, that's not their big problem, that they will go, splurge at Starbucks with the $20 they find in their pocket. I think the big problem is the big things, housing, transportation, job, things like that. So I say go for it. Do you when you get money like that, do you does it feel better to spend it?
Sometimes, because people will, especially for smaller music gigs, people will just pay you by Venmo and I'll leave it in there because then I'll have to pay other people. Or I'm rarely cashing out my Venmo account. So sometimes I'll go in there and I'm oh, that really added up. And then I will kind of forget what was that gig or whatever. So I'm if there's $500-$600 in my Venmo, I'm oh yeah, let's go. Because then I'll think about times during the month when I was oh, I probably shouldn't buy that. And I'm oh, I forgot about this $500. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that free Venmo money. But if you're getting paid that way, I feel that should really be going in your checking account. I feel Venmo's got this incredible scam going where they're just sitting on so much of people's money and people forget about it or whatever. They're not getting interest on it. I'm sure Venmo's making something on that.
Probably. I do try. I don't do the instant transfer thing where they take a bunch of money, but I think they still get something. But no, I have to. I think I should be better. And then if it goes through my business account, then I have to end up reporting. So I probably should just immediately transfer it, because then it's harder to figure out if I lump sum transfer when I'm doing my taxes. What was that from? What was that income? Right. So honestly, just help me work something out in my own mind about how I should be budgeting. Using this for
all right. Now that we've learned it, let's jump into the show. What do we have today?
We've got a hot topic.
Oh my gosh, this hot topic is starting to feel a little bit stale at this point. This is a stale. There's a hot cake, which is a hot pancake. This is a stale pancake topic. But what is it?
It's hot, though, because we're still living in this. So today's hot topic is from a Bloomberg headline that reads, "Tariff refunds may be coming. If you paid, here are your options." So what do you know about this new refund portal that everybody's talking about, and how will this affect the everyday business owner and consumer?
So just to recap, we might need to change the name of the show to Personal Tariff Show one of these days for the amount of time we waste talking about stupid tariffs. And now it's officially wasted time, because just to recap, for the first year of the Trump administration, Donald Trump would show up to press conferences with like these big poster boards of every country in the world and random numbers, and people would like kind of dissect like how he came with those numbers, and they're insane. And just he would basically be assigning tariffs, and he would say he's taxing these other countries to benefit the U.S. people, but everyone who knows about the world and the tax laws, you can't just tax other countries. You're taxing your own country's companies who are importing stuff. And so if you go to
Mm-hmm.
Amazon and buy a cell phone case that was made in China, typical example, whoever brought that cell phone case to the US and put it in a warehouse to then eventually get shipped out from Amazon has to pay this tariff, this tax to the US government. And he was basing all these tariffs on the Trade Act of 1974, which basically said, hey, if there's some sort of, you know, matter of national security, you can, do some things with trade to help prevent it. So I think the idea, like the spirit of that law was if China starts bombing us, the president can say, hey, stop selling China bombs.
Mm-hmm.
That makes perfect sense. But Trump was saying, the trade deficit is a matter of national security, and so I'm just going to start assigning random tariffs. And his own Supreme Court, now that he's like handpicked, more than or almost half of it, whatever it is, like very conservative leading Supreme Court was like, yeah, come on, bro, that's that's too far.
I'm
This
so
isn't
shocked. Like, why'd they let it get this far? How'd they let it get this far just to deny it?
well, like who is they, right? They is just like Trump on day one starting to like print posters at Kinko's, and then he goes and tells the
Kinko's.
director of I don't know, maybe I guess it's FedEx now, I don't know. But yeah, he just prints some posters, then he sends an email to his person that he installed as the head of like the border patrol, who
Right.
like takes tariffs, and then they start telling their agents like, hey, if someone wants their crate at the shipping dock, charge him this amount of money. And so it
Right.
just happened. It's because it came from the boss or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then meanwhile, people are suing up the chain in the other branch of government, like the judicial branch of government.
Right.
And then the Supreme Court's like, no, you can't do that. So now, that happened. Supreme Court ruling came down. And so now I guess this is such a stupid recap, but like, during that whole process, before, during, after the Supreme Court ruling, 3,000 companies sued the Trump administration, basically saying, "Yo, we're going to take this lawsuit in our own hands and sue you because you can't do this. It's illegal to do that because you're basing it on this like law that was not designed to, install taxes. It was designed to stop selling bombs to people bombing us or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so now the Trump administration, looking at these 3,000 lawsuits and the Supreme Court ruling, is like, okay, well, I guess, well, what we're doing was illegal. Now we have to give the money back. And so they took in $166 billion in these illegal, now determined to be illegal tariffs, as determined by the Supreme Court. And now they have to give it back. And
Uh-huh.
so apparently what is it? The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency is the one that's responsible for this. And on their website, there's, this like very governmenty wall of text looking website, and you can click through it and you find a PDF, which is right here. And if you're just listening, it's another wall of text with, a bunch of steps, and there's no fewer than 5 QR codes on the right hand side where you can start
I
scanning.
think it's funny that everybody has QR codes now because everybody does everything on their phone. So I'm like, then you have to like go and be like, where do I put this so that I can like now scan this on my phone? Although I guess if you're
Right,
trying to get
exactly. It's a
tariff
website that
dollars
links to a
back,
right.
then you're
It's a
not gonna like
website that
be on
links
your
to a
phone.
PDF that has a QR code you're supposed to take a picture of, which will then apparently give you a link. Like, why couldn't that just have been the link?
The
Like,
link,
why
right?
we started a web page, now we got paper involved, and now we're back at a web page. But I mean, and I think that's kind of the feeling that a lot, and so I guess just to be clear, consumers weren't directly paying these tariffs, like
Right.
businesses were when they're importing shipping crates and things like that. And businesses apparently have some sort of account with the border agency where they're paying the tariffs to. And now they're basically saying, okay, you can try to like figure out how much you paid and how much you get back through this. And my understanding is the businesses don't feel super confident this is going to be a quick and clean process.
Well, what I've
Um,
heard, maybe you're going to talk about this, is that like some hedge funds are like doing the process for people. So like buying out the like the
right, the debt
money.
owed or whatever at a
Yeah. So
some
I'm
sort
like,
of fraction.
what? Because people won't have to deal with the hassle of it. So I'm like, this is a whole nother scam.
Capitalism, baby. You're owed $1 million. We'll pay you 800,000 right now, and start printing PDFs and scanning QR codes and try to get the other 200,000. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, capitalism, baby. And speaking of capitalism, listeners of the show probably aren't going to go get their direct refund because they're probably not an importer exporter business or an importer business,
Hmm.
unless you are Vandalay Industries and you're importing latex or whatever it is. Do you get that reference, Jen?
Vandalay, is that Seinfeld?
That's Seinfeld. He was an importer.
Whoa. Whoa, he's
So
an
yeah,
import. Wow, we are
his
really
well,
aging
his
ourselves
fake
right
job was importer. And
now.
so if Seinfeld was made today and they had the fake Vandalay Industries where he's a fake importer, he would be paying tariffs. How, man, 25, 30 years later from Seinfeld now,
That
suddenly
is
how
such a
topical.
funny reference.
So stupid. I'm like really dating myself.
Yeah.
Once I went to a Seinfeld stand-up show,
Uh-huh.
and this was probably 10 years ago now, so I was probably like 35, and I was like, oh, Seinfeld, he's like the number one comic in the world, like this is going to be huge, like a big auditorium, whatever, big theater. And then like I get there and I realize that like I'm probably the youngest person in the entire audience. Not by a lot, but like the audience was like 45 to 65. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, because like Seinfeld's popular like the early 90s where I was like
Uh-huh.
10.
Yeah.
And so I was like kind of like the youngest person who was really like watching Seinfeld and understanding it. Most people were
Yeah.
like 20 to 40 25 years ago. Now they're all 45 to 70. And so I'm like, this is just very weird to be at this like big, what I thought was going to be like a bunch of young people going to a comic show. I was like, oh, of
They're
course.
all
Like
like 60.
he's a comedian of a different era now.
Yeah.
So
That was
I'm
appointment
also,
viewing in the Medea house. I mean, but we were like watching it with our parents. So
right.
it's like
Exactly. I mean, yeah,
family
even me, I
viewing.
was like, I think I'm too young to get these jokes, but, um,
That's
still. Anyway,
that's
so
funny.
Vandal Industries tariffs. But yeah, to bring it back, if you are not a Vandal Industries, you're not an importer yourself. You might be
Hmm.
thinking, "Hey, didn't these tariffs burn me?" And the answer is like, yeah, maybe, because what happened was like, let's say you're that cell phone seller in the U.S. You import a case of 10,000 cell phone cases from China, and then you were expecting them to cost $3 a case. But now with the tariff, they're going to cost $5 a case or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And you were selling them for $6 a case. And you're like, ooh, at $6 a case, I'm actually losing money because I can't even cover, my rent in my office or whatever. And so you're like, okay, now I'm going to start charging $8 a case. And so when you went to Amazon, unbeknownst to you, cell phone cases just started costing more because these companies had to increase their prices to like maintain their viability.
Right.
And now the cell phone importer is going to go get a refund of 100 grand from the federal government. And you might be thinking, do I get a piece of that? And the answer is, I doubt it. I think every company back then had the choice: do I just, eat this additional cost and become less or not profitable, or do I increase prices and be part of the tapestry that makes up inflation? And I think a lot of them basically chose the inflation route. And so
Well, my other
what I
question is
suspect,
like,
yeah,
well, like if I'm a retailer and I'm selling cell phone cases, I'm not gonna now bring the price down. Like the cases are
I
now
mean,
$22.
well, that's
You
what
know,
they
like
say like prices like rise like a rocket and like fall like a feather. And
yeah,
so, probably a lot of those cell phone case sellers were thinking, sales didn't actually drop much when I went from $6 to $8 or whatever it is.
right.
Um, do I really need to compete? And like all my competitors did the same thing and they're not lowering their prices. And so, while it might not be strict collusion, they're kind of all just pricing with the market now, and the market's now higher. And so, that's inflation, right? And
Hmm.
maybe that's a failure of capitalism. I don't know.
Hmm.
My prediction, though, is that there will be virtually no direct consumer refunds, but I predict a bunch of companies are going to use this as a marketing ploy to basically run sales or give some sort of credit or something like that. And so, like,
Oh,
your cell phone importer might say, "Hey, we're having a tariff refund 2-for-1 sale. Buy one case, get two, get two or whatever it is." And is that really a refund? Is that a credit? Is that just a sale they would be happy to run anyway to get more revenue?
yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I bet some like very hippie companies like like a Ben and Jerry's or a Dr. Bronner's or something like that. Like they might be like actually trying to like send out if they were hit by this, I don't know, like
Yeah.
their extend of their tariffs. But you know, FedEx and Costco are two of the companies that are currently suing the Trump administration. So they're big companies mixed up in this too. And I could definitely see Costco doing something. Costco is
Oh
kind of
yeah, they've
like
been standing on business this whole
right,
time.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they know everyone's got memberships. They know who bought everything. They could potentially just send out a refund check to everyone like they do with their little credits. So yeah, that's a tariff
Nice.
situation. It kind of feels like the tariff situation, the Strait of Hormuz. Am I saying that right? Hormuz? I
I think
feel like,
so. Yeah.
okay. I feel
I'm
like
the
they're
expert
kind of,
on those pronunciations, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and
okay,
prove
good.
that.
I really like wading into business that neither of us have any knowledge about. Middle Eastern pronunciations, let's
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like the Strait of Hormuz was open, and then the Trump administration did a whole bunch of stuff, and now they're trying to get it reopened and declare success. And we're like, wait, didn't we start here? And
Yeah.
tariffs are kind of the same. We just did a whole bunch of crazy tariff shit for a year and a half, and now we're back to like try to refund it and get back to where we started.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not sick of winning yet, but you can decide if you are. So yeah, but that's tariffs. Don't hold your breath for your own refund.
Nice. You did a great job explaining that. So I think you're getting better now that we've talked about it for like
Yeah, I know.
6 months now.
Personal Tariff Club is
Yeah.
alive and well. A topic that I thought we wouldn't cover. This goes back to like the Boston Tea Party and stuff. Now we're bringing it right back into 2026.
Hot off the press. Okay, well, on that note, let's move on to do you want to have your question answered on the show? Go to personalfinanceclub.com/ask. Can I ask a dumb one?
You're asking smart question. This is a really smart question. Two really dumb guys. What is our smart question today?
This is from David in South Carolina, my neighbor. Well, I'm not there. I'm not in North Carolina now, but those are my peoples. We, I want to say also, we get like a good diversity of questions from like all over the US at this point. I don't think we've gotten any international yet, but that's pretty good.
Hey, we got range, baby. People always ask me like, "Oh, is that just people in San Diego follow you?" I was like, "No." When you look at the metrics, it's pretty much population spread out like the rest of the U.S. is.
That's pretty
And
dope. Okay, so
I think we
yeah.
are about 75% U.S., 25% international. So, but I do feel bad for the
Nice.
international people because there's a lot of Roth IRA talk, on the
Yes.
podcast that just doesn't apply because that's a U.S. tax law thing. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no, the true rules still apply. And I do hear from a lot of international people who are becoming millionaires in their own rights, following the two rules. So hopefully, shout out to you guys.
Period.
Yeah.
Ow.
All right.
Okay, so
What's the
this is
question?
David in South Carolina. David asks, I was fortunate to inherit control of a custodial account after college with a few tens of thousands. It was actively managed. It was an actively managed brokerage account at a 1% fee, which at the time didn't seem too bad. I continued to contribute for about 20 more years and it has grown to over 1 million. Yay. But I'm now paying over 10,000 per year in fees. Ouch. Plus, now I understand that compounded over time, that nearly 1% fee has likely cost a lot more in potential returns. But it's not obvious how to get out of this setup and into the ETF approach. Jeremy?
That's a great question, David. And so, first of all, congratulations. Like, good problem to have. You are basically asking a logistical with all the different individual holdings and tax question. But, the headline here is you have $1 million, or so. You said more than 1 million. Let me first, and you're talking about the 1% fees, just to kind of clarify what that means is if you go hire a typical financial advisor or an asset manager, they'll basically take all your money for you, invest it for you. They'll choose the stuff to invest in, and then they charge what's called an AUM fee or assets under management. And 1% is like kind of very typical average. If you have like lots and lots of money, like many, many millions, it might like come down a little bit. If you have very little, it might be more than 1%, but 1% is pretty typical. And you're exactly right. If you have $1 million there, 1% of $1 million is $10,000. And that's real money being debited from your real account. And it feels very abstract when it's just like, oh, it's all kind of lost in the wishy-washiness of the stock market. And, they're providing this, hard to pin down value. So it's probably fine. But no, for sure, it's $10,000 a year. And that's a massive amount of money. When I think about the things I spend $10,000 a year on, there's not much other than, housing, maybe food, like generally, just really big expenses. So to pay your investment manager $10,000 a year, are they providing that much value? I don't know. So quickly, the quick painful math, I don't know your exact numbers. You kind of gave some vague numbers, which is totally fine. But let me assume you had $50,000 that you inherited. And then, you have $1 million. So you're adding a bunch of this along the way. So let's say you're adding $1,200 a month. And let's say the portfolio they invested you in returned at 10% per year, but they took out a 1% per year fee, meaning the net gain to you was 9% per year. That means today you'd have about $1 million, $1.01 million. Just that's how the math of that compounding works. Your specific situation might be different, like when you put the money in, the growth, which time it grew, things like that. Let's say same exact scenario, 50,000 plus 1,200 a month. But this time, instead of paying the 9% or paying the 1% fee and getting a 9% return, you get all 10% that the market was providing during that time. Instead of 1.01 million, you'd have 1.16 million. So, it's not crazy different. You wouldn't have like 10 million or 5 million or 3 million, but it is $150,000 that you're net lower due to those fees. You didn't pay all that in fees. Much of it's fees, and the rest of it's basically opportunity cost. The fees that you paid earlier in the early years didn't have the chance to grow later. And that was only, I say only 20 years is significant period of time, but the longer it goes, the more those fees compound. And I think you're starting to feel that now. You're like, ooh, $10,000 a year. Do I want to keep paying that? So that said, that's the math, in that example I gave. To be fair, I don't know what stocks you're in. I don't know if you outperform. It's totally possible that this manager happened to pick really good stocks during this time and actually provided a 12% return, and minus net of his fee, you got 11%, and you actually beat the market by a little bit. That's possible. What I do know, that's called alpha when you beat the market by a little bit, if he actually provided real alpha. What I do know is sum total across all investors in the world, the total of alpha is 0. Because for everyone who beats the market, someone has to lose to the market. And the more you learn about this, the more you really start to believe that anyone who's getting alpha is much more likely to be lucky than good. And so if there was alpha, if he'd actually beat the market, is that going to continue? I personally don't think so. But also, he might have been providing other services. He might have been providing financial planning services, things like helping you with taxes or student loans or paying down debt or buying a house. He might just have been a financial advisor there for your service. I don't know. A lot of these asset managers, some of them do that, some of them don't. It's up to you to decide if that was valuable. And he might have also been providing other value to you, like preventing you, 20 years ago it was 2006. And so 2 years later was the 2008 financial crisis. He probably said to you, hopefully, hey, don't sell everything right now. Stock market crashes are part of investing, and maybe kept you on your path. And that sort of coaching along the way maybe led you to have $1 million today, when if you didn't have that guidance, maybe you would have had 500,000, or who knows, right? And so, the world is nothing if not shades of gray. And so obviously I have my opinion about, paying high fees as part of your investments, but it's worth noting that there are some benefits that you might have been, getting along this way too. And like I said, headline is $1 million. Jen, you convinced yet?
I'm
I know I'm convincing you.
I know I was about to say what. No, you're doing fantastic.
Jen's just my yes man. She's like, yeah.
No, I be calling you out because sometimes you let me not get into
okay, that's true. You do. Yeah.
Sometimes you act crazy. David, thank you for your very thoughtful question.
Wait,
Jeremy,
we're not done yet. We're only halfway done.
Oh my God.
We haven't even started. That was just the recap.
We're just getting warmed up, folks.
I always suspected Jenna was watching Grey's Anatomy in the other browser tab. And she's like, oh, yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's where you're at with your advisor. But what do? You basically asked 2 questions. Question number 1 was the logistics. How do I transfer this? And the answer is that's actually pretty easy. Any brokerage custodian really loves transferring assets in. And so you can go to Fidelity, you can click start a transfer, you can put in the details of your existing, advisor, and then they basically just do it. They pull it, and there's, the system is set up so you can actually do a pull, and you don't even need to tell your advisor about it necessarily. That said, being that you've been with them for 20 years, I would recommend probably sending them a nice email saying, hey, thank you for your service all these years. You can be very polite. Let them know you plan to self-manage going forward and that they should expect an incoming transfer request. That's all
They're
you
gonna
really
be
need to.
sad.
They're going to be sad because like, ooh, that was $10,000 a year that I was getting for doing probably not very much. I
Yeah.
don't know your advisor, but a lot of them basically are in the business of collecting AUM, collecting assets under management to, and it's a good business once you've got it, right? Because people don't leave very often. So the process is pretty simple. It's going to take, 7 business days or, some annoying, there might be a form you have to sign or fill in or whatever. But once you do it, it's not that big of a deal. Kind of like the more meaningful financial question you're asking is okay, what about taxes? And so your current situation is this advisor was basically putting you in individual stocks, now many of which have these really large unrealized gains. And one of the kind of downsides of individual stocks is that you might have really big gains in a way that is less tax efficient than if you were investing in an ETF along the way. And so you basically have 3 options. Before I tell you the options, I want to kind of look at the actual tax impact you're looking at. I don't know your exact numbers, but just go with my assumptions again. Let's say you inherited $50,000, you're putting $1,200 a month. That means to date you've put in $338,000 based on what you inherited plus what you put in. That's your principal. That has already been taxed. It got taxed. You had a step-up basis when you inherited it. I mean, you don't owe any tax on the inheritance, and this money you're putting in is after tax. You already paid income tax on that $1,200 per month. So that $338,000 is never going to be taxed again. Your value is $1 million. That means you have unrealized gains of $662,000. Again, this is assumptions. You need to look in your account. You'll be able to see line items right there, what your actual unrealized gains are. And you want to get that statement so you know what you're up against. If there's been a lot of trading along the way, which is possible with an advisor, and they've been swapping out stocks every year, it might be possible you have little to no unrealized gains because they bought Coke last year, they sold it. They bought Pepsi this year, they sold it. And then you've been paying that tax along the way. So if, my example is kind of the more extreme example where basically there's been no realized gains yet. You've just held everything until now, and you have this huge unrealized gain, which means you didn't sell anything and you didn't get the cash out. I mean, you didn't pay tax on anything. So, of that $662,000, if you were to pay a 20% capital gains rate on that entire bill, that'd be $133,000 in tax. Meaning, instead of having $1 million, you'd have $867,000. So, is that a great thing to have happen? No. But also, you then would have $867,000 fully 100% tax-free. You paid the tax on it now, and you could go take it and buy a house in cash or whatever you want to do with it. And so I just say that because that's kind of like the worst case scenario. That's kind of what you're up against, is trying to either basically delay paying that tax, because there's only one way to get out of paying that tax on capital gains. Do you know what it is, Jen? I kind of already said it earlier by mistake.
There's only one way to get out of paying that tax.
Capital gains tax. Like how can you not pay that capital gains tax ever?
Die. And
that's 100% right. Die. You just got it. One word, die. All you have to do is die.
Okay.
And so, David, let's say you die, and let's say it's still $1 million, and then you have kids. I don't know if you have kids, but let's say you have kids, they inherit it. They would get that $1 million, and then they get a step up in basis, meaning instead of having their basis be $338,000 like yours is, that $662,000 in gains gets stepped up, and now their basis is $1 million. Dying is this incredible tax advantage for the beneficiaries, right? But that said, it's got a really big downside, which is you have to die, and David, I want you to use this money. I want you to spend it. I want you to live with it, make it better. And so, paying this entire tax bill is fully an option. You can choose to do that if you want. That can be your choice. And you can say, I'm going to pay it all in 2026. I'm going to take my 867 and spend half on hookers and blow, and the other half I'm going to just spend unwisely.
Whoa. Flagging the episode, I guess.
Yeah, I know. We always get about a third of the way through the episode. I'm like, well,
who's we?
Another PG-13 episode.
I'm innocent.
That's true. I mean, we're a team. I'm the one that brings down the team, and you're the one that tries to save it. We each have our roles.
You're only as strong as your weakest link.
Exactly. We're a chain. I'm the chain that drops swear words by mistake every once in a while and says hookers and blow. But,
And
I
you
actually
said
have
it
a children's
again.
book
Good.
called Hookers and Blow. It's about a tow truck named Hookers and a snowblower named Blow, and they go around town trying to save Christmas because of a heavy snow.
Excuse
That's a
me.
true story.
Are you done with David's question?
No, David, we're not even close to getting done yet. You've probably already gone through a few tax years while you're waiting for this question to be answered because this answer's
We've
so
only
long.
had the podcast for 6 months.
But this episode is about 18 months so far. This is a very long episode. We're by the time this episode finishes, we're going to be in tax year 2028. That's the entire
Honestly,
problem, Jen.
it's only a little bit
It's
of an
so long.
exaggeration.
Okay. All right. So basically, you can't not pay those taxes unless you die. So if you want to delay paying those taxes, you have three options. One, you can just totally DIY. You can go to Fidelity. DIY stands for do it yourself. You can go to Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab.
I love that you broke that down.
Just saying acronyms is now getting Jen to laugh. We've
No,
fully
but
gone
like,
off the rails.
who doesn't know what DIY means?
I don't know. I'm not on Pinterest. I thought it was like a Pinterest thing.
He's talking down on you, South Carolina. That's crazy. Everybody knows DIY.
Okay, fine. You can just totally DIY. You can go to Fidelity. You can click Initiate Transfer. You're going to get all of your individual positions there, and then you can just sell them whenever you want. You know, you could probably pull up a spreadsheet and look at your tax income this year and tax income that year and make a little plan. That said, if you do that, like my general advice is don't let the tail wag the dog. If you have 90%, I don't know what your stocks are, but let's say 90% of your portfolio is in NVIDIA and you're like, oh, I don't want to realize this gain. I'm going to wait till next year to realize the gain. And then your $1 million portfolio becomes 400,000 because NVIDIA just crumbles because the unexpected AI thing happens next year that none of us are expecting. That could happen. No one knows that that's going to happen. And, your tax savings don't look so good anymore if the value went down by 60%, right? And so, generally, if you want to be diversified in ETFs, you should do that first and then worry about mitigating the taxes second. And so you could totally just DIY and, the baseline there is at worst, you're going to pay all the tax bill in this tax year currently and go on with your life. Option number 2 is go find a flat fee financial advisor. And so,
where can I find one of those?
Oh my gosh. Well, Jen, just tee him up and I'll knock him out of the park. A flat fee financial advisor is one who doesn't charge that AUM fee, who doesn't have this weird incentive to keep you in a complex portfolio that they have to manage. And they're going to help you with what you want to be helped with. If you want to move into ETFs, which is a great move, by the way, they're going to say, okay, hey, here's your 6 positions that need help. Here's your plan for your next 18 months. You're going to sell these at these points. This is why. You're going to do this rollover. You're going to realize these losses. They're going to basically make a plan to mitigate your tax bill. You're still going to pay taxes because they can't defy U.S. tax law, but they can point out some options that you might have. And to answer your question, Jen, of course, I'm a co-founder of Nectarine, and you can find them at hellonectarine.com. You might think this is a big sales pitch, which I guess it is, but the only reason I started this company is because questions like this constantly coming up. I'm like, oh God, you really got to talk to an advisor, but one who's not trying to sell you anything. We need a marketplace of flat fee advisors whose reviews and prices are clearly posted. And so you can go find one. And, if you're paying $10,000 per year, paying, like $1,000 for a few hours of advice or like $3,000 for a complete financial plan is a pretty good deal. It's like 70% off your first year and then there's no recurring bills. So that's very reasonable. The third option is getting into kind of a technical solution to this exact problem that you may or may not like. And so there's this thing called direct indexing. And if you go by VOO is Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF, and you look inside of it, there's 500 individual stocks. And just by buying one little ticker symbol with the ticker code VOO, you own 500 stocks. The tons of benefits, I won't go into them, but there's one downside, which is you can't sell individual positions inside of that ETF. And so there's proponents of direct indexing who say, hey, what if Adobe, for some reason I just caught the Photoshop icon out of the corner of my eye. What if Adobe went way down in value and then, Netflix went way up in value and I want to take some money out? With an ETF, I have no choice. I just kind of have to lop it off at the top, everything equal, and then pay some capital gains. With direct indexing, I could sell some of my Netflix, also sell some of my Adobe, cancel out those gains with losses, get some money out, and not have to pay any capital gains today. And that's kind of what your goal is here. If that is your goal, is to kind of delay paying that capital gains tax. And so direct indexing is basically buying those 500 positions, or maybe it's just 30 or 50 or whatever it is, to basically give you a really diversified approach towards the market, but now a little bit more flexibility in terms of which ones you sell. There's a company called FREC, F-R-E-C, it's all capital, and they basically specialize in your problem, which is you give them all these weird individually large realized or large unrealized gains positions, and they will start direct indexing for you. And they'll even pull some weird tricks with options and things like that to basically give you instant diversification. So avoid that downside NVIDIA risk I kind of talked about a minute ago. So they say they're kind of give you instant, diversification by spreading out your investments without having to realize those gains. And what you're left with is basically one FREC account that kind of feels like one interface, but you have, dozens or potentially even hundreds of underlying positions. If you were to leave FREC one day, you'd kind of be back where you are now, which is, okay, now I got to go to Fidelity and I still have a bunch of individual stocks. But some people are like, no, I like FREC. I don't plan to leave. I just want to have someone manage it, de-risk with this diversification approach and not, be more tax deferred by not realizing these gains right now. So it's kind of like a robo-advisor designed to do this direct indexing thing. I don't, I did not co-found FREC, or else I probably wouldn't have mispronounced it just now. And I'd probably be giving a much more full-throated investment like I do for Nectarine, of course. But, I don't really have a horse in this race. I think for some people who really have a lot of money at stake and really want to do this, I think it's a really great option that's out there. I think for some people, it might just not be worth it. The delay of these taxes, which you're going to owe one day when you want to, cash out anyway, unless you die, of course, might not be worth it. And so it's up to you. I kind of do feel like it's going down this rabbit hole of like, is it really, all this stuff just to delay the tax on, of a few $100,000. That's up to you. So those are three options. DIY, just go to Fidelity, just sell it all and, realize the gains. 2, do that kind of same thing, but with the guidance of a flat fee advisor from hellonectarine.com. Or 3, transfer it all to FREC, which I think, let me give you the website. It's frec.com, F-R-E-C, and then they kind of specialize in this specific thing. So those are your options, David.
Really laid it all out for our friend over there in South Carolina.
Jen's like, weren't we wrapping up 30 minutes ago?
No, that was my fault. I was on Mars. Sorry about that. Thank you, David, for your question. We are done now. Yes.
We're totally done. And I don't blame you. I mean, I get bored listening to myself sometimes. Just got to keep you awake in the car. Hopefully that's the dream, is you don't crash and have a fiery tragedy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, David, for your question. Let's move on to our next segment. Scroll Patrol.
Scroll Patrol.
Hey, all right. I'm on the internet looking for videos. Jeremy has not seen this video before. We're going to watch it together. He's going to live react and give it a score. So stakes are very high. So Jeremy, go ahead and click on that video and let's watch it together.
Here we go.
Babe, why did you cash out your 401k?
So in 2019, I cashed out over $100,000 out of my 401k to invest in real estate. And that's because 401ks are the single greatest scam that anybody can invest in. Now, for 99% of people, if you have no discipline financially and you don't want to invest your own money, for sure, get your employer a match. That's fine. But what 401ks are designed for is the U.S. government literally said, most people don't have enough discipline to actively invest money on their own, so we're going to create a program that forces people to get into equities, aka the stock market. And so the 401k is designed for you to not pay tax right now and then draw on it later at 65, where you're supposed to be paying less tax. But the issue is, I'm going to be really, really rich at 65 years old, and I'm going to be in a higher tax bracket. So you are literally having no benefit to having a 401k because you have zero control with that capital that's inside the vehicle of the 401k. So look, I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not giving financial advice. If you want to ride that 401k, do it. I'm just saying that if you want to understand how to actively invest your money in real estate and businesses and stuff like that, it's much better to pay the 10% pre-penalty to go ahead and get that money out of the 401k to where you can control it and actually grow it and do something with it. Most people are just sitting, like, you're wasting money in a 401k.
Okay.
He's
Was that
not
guy
giving
driving?
financial advice.
Before we get into the substance of this, and so far, is there any, like, this man didn't touch the steering wheel until like a minute 15 into the video. I thought he was in the passenger seat, and it does look like it's, he's sitting on the right side of the car from our perspective. If you're not watching this, you're just gonna have to trust me. But he's sitting on the right side of the car, and he has an American accent, so I take that to mean he's in the passenger seat. But then at like a minute 15 in this video, he starts steering, which makes me think that it was a self-facing camera. It's flipped, and he's been driving this whole time.
Yeah, I hope the girl's not driving because she was filming. So which is better.
Right. This is maybe we need to address the safety concerns here.
Also, why is everybody who gives advice like this shirt so tight?
Yeah. The guy he has not skipped bicep day at the gym, so full credit to that. I mean, hey, like, I'm a fitness guy too. I like that. But yeah, no, it's always like the 27-year-olds with like the, 2 sizes too small polo who, just magically make more in real estate. Okay. I mean, I almost pulled my eyeballs when he said 401ks are the biggest scam, because like, no, 401ks are not. I mean, I don't even know how to destroy this, but I'll go systematically. Yeah, 401ks are not the biggest scam. It's simply a tax savings. And I feel like all these like scam videos we see, they always have this like little hint of truth, which is if you're in a higher tax bracket later than you are now, then you might be paying higher income tax. Kind of, but you're not paying capital gains or dividends tax along the way. And so there's actually this huge benefit to, compound growth that you wouldn't get if you were in a non-tax advantage account like real estate, where you're paying, tax on your rent, or you're paying tax on dividends, or if you're in a brokerage account. So even if you're in a higher tax bracket in retirement, which to be fair, you might be, because a lot of people who are investing early and often will end up with lots of money and be making big withdrawals. But there's like so many ways to deal with that then. So just to blanket say you're going to pay more in tax, therefore pay all your tax now, which you would have to do anyway, plus your 10% penalty, and go get magically better returns outside of the safety of a tax advantage account, does not make sense. That said, like, real estate is good investing too. I'm not against real estate, and it's possible to make more in real estate than you do in the stock market. It's also possible to make less than you do in the stock market. And, his proposal that you're automatically better off by doing this is like, so, wholly false. And in fact, most wealthy people are trying to do the opposite, get more and more and more money into their own 401k. He said you have zero control. He had a lot of air quotes. If you're just listening, he's like, he called them equities and air quotes. I'm like, no, they are equities. They're, ownership in the companies of the world. And they're probably companies that are being a lot better managed than whatever rinky dink stuff this guy is doing. So, those publicly traded companies of the world, being an owner of them is like an amazingly efficient way to generate amazing wealth. So, anyone who says 401k is a scam, that's a lie. It's not a scam. It's like a tax advantage offered, a limited tax advantage. You can't even put that much into a 401k offered to you by the government. There are rules around it, but when you leave a 401k, or when you leave a job, you can potentially roll over your 401k into an IRA, and you can even invest that IRA in real estate. And so, paying a penalty to get out of the tax advantage situation is a terrible idea. I don't even, he said some other crazy stuff, and then I really got distracted by whether or not he was driving, because I'm pausing a screenshot, like his hands are not on the wheel.
Yeah, I guess. Is he driving with his knees? Some people do that.
Like maybe early in the video, his left hand's grabbing the wheel, like just out of frame.
Well, okay. Also, I don't know if I'm sure you do know about this. My friend has a Subaru, or she had a Subaru, where it was like kind of self-driving, and it would know you didn't have to, if you were on the freeway, you didn't really have to touch the wheel if you don't want to.
Totally. I mean, I have a Tesla, and that's like, I only touch the wheel when I'm on the freeway, insofar as it yells at me if I don't. Otherwise, it's like really, really good about staying in the lanes. And so, like, I get that, except I'm also not recording videos while I'm doing it, right?
Right,
And
right,
so,
right.
like, this is like fully unsafe because he's definitely like looking at the camera most of the time, and
Yeah.
you don't have to be looking away from the road very much to miss,
Or something happen.
someone cutting you off, a kid running across, chasing a ball, yada yada yada. So, don't support this. I don't know. I give this guy a D minus. The
D
only reason it's
minus.
not F is because there's like a couple little hints of like, he is talking about investing early and often and building wealth. That's like a good thing, but this is just nonsense.
D minus on the video, and then an F for road safety.
Yeah, road safety, I give him an F, and
Terrible.
for polo shirt sizing, I give him a C plus.
Oh, wow.
It's not that
Lucky.
bad. It's not the
not
worst
that
I've
bad.
seen.
No, we've definitely seen worse. There's not enough chest hair for us to be fully offended.
Oh yeah, exactly. If we've got an F, he would have been fully nipping out. All right, flag the episode again.
This can't even go on the internet. Okay,
No,
let's
the internet's
move
not
on.
ready for this filth.
We're moving on before we get ourselves into too much trouble to
Money.
Jeremy had time today.
I had time today.
Yeah.
You guys are starting flame wars with me on the internet.
Yes. We're in the comment section. We're on Instagram. You posted about an S&P record high. Tell us what we're seeing before we get into the comment section.
Yeah, so, as of, spring of 2026, so far this year, there's been this Iran war that, the U.S. started and then is hopefully trying to resolve. And so the market tanked to the tune of almost 10%, I think, and then it recovered. And now, as of late April, we're actually, for the first time in history, saw the S&P 500 close over 7,000. What does that mean? It doesn't really mean anything specifically. It's just like the share price of the underlying, companies added up. It doesn't include dividends or anything like that. But it is just an interesting thing to note that never before in history could you, have basically bought a share of VOO for as much, or sold a share, I guess, if you're trying to make money, sold a share of VOO for as much as you can today. The market's at all-time record highs, and it's a big round number. And so that's worth noting in an IG post. And then this person said,
"Are we really celebrating inflation? The money printer isn't your friend."
So what they're saying is, okay, it's above 7,000, but the reason it's above 7,000 is that the federal government is just frantically flooding money into the economy by printing money, as they call it. These days, it's a lot less of like physical paper, a lot more of like just pushing money into banks and things like that. And therefore, everyone has more money. And when everyone has more money, that causes inflation. So for example, let's say I could go click a button with my mouse and deposit $1 million, like brand new money, just fictionalized, just created out of thin air into every single person's checking account in the US. What would that do to prices? Every small business would suddenly have like people clamoring to buy them out of stock. And so they'd be raising their prices to like try to stay in stock. Basically, when you create a lot of money like that, prices go up because now people can compete with each other. And as there's more demand because people have more money in their checking account, prices go up. That's Econ 101. And that's what this commenter is saying, hey, this higher share price of the S&P 500 isn't, real economic growth or, great success of the companies. It's just purely money printing. And, my answer to that is, yeah, maybe partially true. There's definitely this concept of inflation is a rising tide that pushes the stock market up. And, my main answer to that is, even if that's true, well, I guess before I go to my main answer, it's partially true, but primarily it's not true. Most of the growth of the market isn't just keeping track with inflation, it's above and beyond inflation. Going back to the year 2000, the total S&P 500 return is about 8.1%, and that includes the lost decade when, the year after 2000. So I could have done the same numbers with 2010 and had it be like, 13% or something. But this chart I'm showing starts around 2000, so I'll say that number. So it's around 8.1%. Inflation has been 2.5%. And so that delta, that what is it, 5.6% between the inflation and the total growth is real growth, not nominal, but real after inflation, above and beyond inflation. So partially, no, you're wrong. Like most of this isn't just inflation; it's actually real growth. And then my other response is, what's your alternative? If you're mad about inflation, are you going to keep money in your checking account? Are you going to bury cash in a tin can in your backyard? People who say comments like this would probably say things like, I would buy gold or Bitcoin or something like that, which is fine because those do at least keep up with inflation usually. But if you look at a really long track record of gold, it really doesn't beat inflation. It kind of keeps up with inflation and dramatically underperforms the stock market. But to be fair to gold, it's had a good 30 years or so. But just to give a bit of an example, like let's say you're like, okay, the S&P 500 is just, all it's doing is reflecting all this money printing. It's just a money printer chart. It's not real growth. Let's say you go back to the year 2000 and you had $10,000. If you buried that $10,000 in a coffee can in your backyard and dug it up today, you'd have $10,000. You could buy a lot less with that due to inflation, but your $10,000 didn't grow if it's cash in a coffee can, right? Let's say now you put in a savings account. And a lot of these years, these bad years in the stock market over the last 26 years, rates have been really, really low. And so, a savings accounts on average might have only been paying like 1% or so over that time. And so let's say you got a 1% return in the savings account. If you put that $10,000 in a 1% savings account, today you'd have $12,952. Better than the coffee can, but not great. And so then let's say instead in the year 2000, you bought the S&P 500 and you had to deal with the dot-com crash, the financial crisis, the COVID crash, the 2022 stagflation, like all these crashes that we were talking about. If you put that $10,000 into the S&P 500, today you would have $75,764. And so it's, if this is just inflation, do you want your $12,000 in your savings account or your $75,000 in the stock market? So it beats inflation by a lot. So, for sure, inflation is part of this rising tide that raises prices and, raises the stock market. But, that's exactly why you want to be on top of that tide, not being underneath it, drowning, just holding cash. So, commenter, I see your point, but I'm still investing, for sure.
You see your point, but do you? You're not with it.
I mean, I'm not with the point. No, I do feel like this is kind of the moon landing wasn't real kind of comment, tinfoil hat stuff. It's like so mad at this one specific thing about, new money creation. It's like missing the bigger point, and that's not a good way to build wealth, I don't think.
Period. Okay. We did it. We made it to the end of the episode.
Great work, Jen. And we only had 3 or 4 questionably adult topics. So apologies if you're listening in the car with your kids.
Very operative word.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to hit us with the 2 rules and we'll get out of here?
You're not just throwing me under the bus. We're not a team. This
is recorded medium. All people have to do is rewind. I'm not lying.
Yeah. And the podcast said these things and we're the podcast.
I'm going to add the disclaimer at the end. So
have you ever played Spades?
Yes.
Spades it's a card game where you have to you each make an individual bid and then you team up and your combined bid is what your team has to get. And sometimes people are like, oh, I got mine, you didn't get yours. It doesn't matter. When
I play Spades, I have much more synergy with my partner than we've had in this episode, okay?
Oh, now she's trashing the podcast.
We're catching a vibe. You went on your own. Hookers and Blow is Jeremy TM.
I can't make eye contact because your internet's too bad. You look like you're being filmed on a potato. Well, what am I supposed to do? You got a big potato face over there.
Wait,
is the potato the person or the camera?
Potato's crazy.
Yeah, I think when you say filmed on a potato, you're not the potato. The camera's the potato.
Yeah, you're off the rails.
All right, and if you want,
thank you.
What were you going to say?
I'm walking out. I said, this is why I can't be a team with you because you just called me a potato.
I didn't call you. I corrected myself. The camera's the potato.
Okay.
I guess technically the internet connection is the potato. I don't know why you plugged a potato into your computer, but okay, no one's a potato. But if you want to be able to buy a lot of potatoes, you can build wealth. And you know how you do that? By following the 2 rules of Personal Finance Club. Rule number 1, live below your means. And rule number 2, invest early and often. See you next potato.
The Personal Finance Club show is produced by Jeremy Schneider and Jen Mundia. Music by Esabalu and Homie. Send your questions to podcast@personalfinanceclub.com. The Personal Finance Club show is co-hosted by Jeremy Schneider, who is a co-owner of Nectarine, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The views expressed on this show are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Nectarine. Please refer to hellonectarine.com for all relevant disclosures. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as personalized investment advice or a solicitation to buy or sell any security. Listeners should consult their own financial, legal, or tax professionals for advice specific to their situation.